softly against the window as Grandma sat by her old rocking chair, the one she had carried with her all the way from her hometown to the USA. Her wrinkled hands rested on her lap, holding a faded photograph of a young woman herself, 50 years ago, full of dreams, courage, and innocence. When she came to America, she thought life would be simple, a place of happiness, comfort, and new beginnings. But dreams often change shape when reality knocks on the door. Every scar on her hand had a story. Every sigh carried a memory she couldn't forget. As she looked outside at the empty street shimmering under the cold rain, she whispered to herself, "This isn't the life I dreamed of, but it's the one I lived. And maybe the real pain isn't what life took away, but what it never gave back." Grandma's story began in a small village, far away from the noise of cities, a place where sunsets painted the sky in gold and children ran barefoot through the fields. She was young, full of laughter, and her dreams were bigger than her world. When she married a man who promised her a future in America, she thought she had found her forever. The day she left her parents behind, her mother's trembling hands held her face one last time. "Beta, wherever you go, never forget your roots." Those words became the compass of her life. But when she arrived in the USA, the glitter she imagined turned into quiet nights, long hours of work, and an ache of loneliness that no one could see. Still, she smiled, because that's what strong women do when the world doesn't care about their tears. She had crossed oceans for love, but soon, love became the ocean she was drowning in. The early years in America were harder than Grandma had ever imagined. She didn't know the language, didn't have friends, and every face around her felt distant, like they belonged to another world. Her husband worked long hours, and she stayed home, staring at the clock, counting the ticking seconds of silence. She missed the smell of her mother's cooking, the laughter of neighbors, the evening prayers under the open sky. Every night, she would sit near the small window, whispering her thoughts to the stars, the same stars that once shone above her childhood home. One evening, as tears rolled down her cheeks, she asked herself, "Was this the dream I left everything for?" Sometimes, the heaviest suitcase isn't the one you carry in your hands, but the one filled with unspoken emotions. Years passed, and Grandma learned to live between two worlds, one she left behind, and one she was still trying to understand. She started working part-time at a small library, surrounded by the quiet rustle of pages and the smell of old books. It became her escape, a place where stories felt more real than her own life. Every day, she met strangers who came and went, but no one ever asked her story. Sometimes, when she shelved a book about love or loss, she would smile softly, as if she knew both too well. The library light reflected gently on her silver hair as she whispered, "Maybe we all are just stories waiting to be read by someone who truly cares." Her loneliness didn't break her. It shaped her into something deeper, wiser, and quieter. And in that silence, she found the only friend who never left time itself. Grandma's life took another turn when she became a mother. Holding her newborn daughter for the first time was like holding a piece of home, fragile, pure, and full of hope. She promised herself that her child would never feel the same emptiness she had. She worked tirelessly, often skipping meals, saving every penny to build a better future. There were nights when she sewed clothes until her fingers bled, mornings when she packed lunch boxes before the sun even rose. Her daughter grew up speaking English fluently, blending perfectly into the world Grandma still felt like a stranger in. And yet, every time she heard her child say, "Mom," it healed something inside her that no doctor ever could. But deep down, a quiet fear haunted her. Would her daughter ever understand the sacrifices buried behind those wrinkles and tired eyes? She gave her child wings to fly, but never realized how lonely the sky would feel once they were gone. As the years passed, Grandma watched her daughter grow, from a little girl clutching her hand to a confident young woman chasing dreams of her own. The day her daughter left for college, the house fell silent. The laughter that once echoed in every corner was replaced by the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Grandma kept her daughter's room just the way she left it, the books on the table, the framed photo by the bed, and a half-burnt candle that still smelled like hope. She often sat on that bed, smiling at the memories, whispering silent prayers for her child's happiness. But when night came, loneliness crept in again, slow, heavy, and familiar. She wondered if this was what all mothers felt, the joy of watching their children fly, mixed with the ache of being left behind. Sometimes, love means letting go, even when every part of you wants to hold on. Time moved on, quietly but relentlessly. Grandma's hair turned silver, her hands weaker, but her heart remained as full as ever. Her daughter was now married, living in another state, visiting only a few times a year. Every phone call began with "Hi, Mom," and ended with "I'll call you soon." But that soon always stretched into months. Grandma never complained. She knew life had its own pace. She spent her days tending to her garden, talking to the flowers as if they could hear her stories. On some evenings, she would bake cookies and set 2 cups of tea, one for herself, one for her memories. The smell of fresh tea filled the air, but the other cup always stayed untouched. She'd sigh softly, smiling through the ache in her chest, whispering, "Maybe love isn't about being together. Maybe it's about remembering someone enough to keep waiting." And the hardest part of love is pretending you're not lonely when you are. One winter evening, Grandma sat by her window, wrapped in her old knitted shawl, watching the snowflakes drift down like tiny whispers from the sky. The world outside looked beautiful, peaceful, but her heart felt heavy with memories. On the table beside her was a box filled with letters she had written over the years, but never sent, words of love, apologies, dreams, and regrets that never found their way to anyone. She opened one of them, her trembling fingers tracing the ink that had faded with time. It was a letter to her younger self, the girl who had once believed that love could fix everything. A tear rolled down her cheek as she smiled softly and whispered, "You did your best, my dear, and that's enough." The warmth of her own words wrapped around her like a quiet hug from the past, because sometimes the only person who can heal you is the version of yourself you once left behind. The days grew slower, the nights longer. Grandma's steps had become small and careful, yet her heart still carried the same strength it always had. One morning, she received a call. Her daughter was coming to visit after almost 2 years. Her old eyes filled with tears as she dusted the furniture, baked her daughter's favorite pie, and placed fresh flowers on the table. When the doorbell finally rang, her trembling hands opened the door, and there she was, her little girl, now a woman, with eyes full of love and guilt. They hugged for a long time, words failing but hearts speaking. Over tea, they laughed, cried, and shared the stories they had both missed. That night, Grandma sat beside her sleeping daughter and whispered, I don't need anything more from life, she came back home. Because sometimes love doesn't need promises, just one more moment together. Grandma's story is one of love, sacrifice, and quiet resilience. She has lived through loneliness, struggled with the weight of unspoken dreams, and yet she never let bitterness enter her heart. Sitting in her favorite rocking chair, she looks around at the life she has built, not perfect, but full of meaning. To everyone watching her story, she says softly, cherish your family, hold your loved ones close, and never take a single hug for granted. And to you, dear viewer, if this story touched even a small part of your heart, please like this video, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the strength, love, and humanity in our everyday lives. Because every soul has a story, and every story deserves to be remembered.